You want to add some splatter effect to your sprites in your games? Let's take a look at how to do that. Alright, so let's take a look. I just have a bunch of bullets here in the scene, just using up or created from the Godot icon. And they just have a collision shape if we head on over there. We have a character body to create it, a sprite 2D to show the image, area 2D, which has a collision shape that covers my little projectile here. I found this random splat online, and due to the size, I set the scale to 0.1. That's obviously going to vary based on your project and your splatters and stuff. My main scene just has a node 2D for the main. All of these little bullets just fitting in it, ready to fly. Tap player. And then the player itself is a character body 2D that has sprite and a collision polygon as opposed to a collision spot. Collision shape. That's the word I was thinking of. Just because the collision polygon is going to be a little more accurate in terms of its representation. Just so that we don't end up with, say, a collision all the way out here, and then we have essentially no splat going. So this way we actually hit, and we can actually splatter at the location that we hit at. Right. So going into my bullet, we have the area 2D that has a signal connected to it, and that signal is going to be our body entered. And now for our code. Well, when our bullet exists in the scene, first thing it's going to do is it's going to set its Y velocity to plus equals 500. I just found that is a good number based on this specific project. Yours could be different, of course, and I'm using the Y-axis because I want mine to move on the up and down vertical as opposed to left and right on the horizontal X-axis. Again, that's going to be up to you, the project. Then we're using the physics process because we are working with collisions here and movement, things that are related to physics. And I just use move and slide for this. And for that signal that we have connected, I check if player is in my body.name that we collide with. And alternatively, of course, you can go in, you can play with the masks and layers and have your bullets not collide with each other that way. That's perfectly fine. This is just something that I'm used to and allows me to avoid having to fiddle with that stuff when it's not necessary in a small example like this. But for when our bullet actually hits our player, comes in contact, our Y velocity gets turned to 0, so it stops moving. We then call a function that we're going to create called create splatter point on our body, and we're going to pass in our current position. So we have the point of impact getting passed in, and then we're just going to queue free our bullet so we don't have any memory leaks. Right, now when we go into the player, I have a variable at the top just called colors, and it just has an array of a bunch of colors. That way I can have the option of having random colors for my splatters. Of course, you don't have to, that's completely up to you. But all we have in here is my create splatter point function that we're calling from the bullet. This has one argument of impact, which is a vector 2. And all we're going to do is we're going to load up our splat texture, our splat scene. We're going to instantiate it. I'm going to get the player sprite because we have to add it to our sprite, not the character body with the script on. Make sure you add it to the sprite itself. And then I have some optional things in here that you can do. So again, here I'm setting my modulate to a random color, a randomly selected color from my array of colors at the top there. I'm also randomizing the scale a little bit so we can get a little bit of variety mixed in there. And that's just a variable called rand scale. And that's just a random float in the range of 0.05 to 0.1. So it's not a huge range, but it's a small range. And then we take whatever number that is and we apply it to our scale on X and Y for our splat or instance. And then we want it in that exact position that it hit. So we're going to set the global position for our instant splatter is equal to the impact point that was passed in. And when you go ahead and run that, you'll notice you should have our bullets running away. Let me go back to our main scene and let's try that again. Okay, for some reason that loaded the wrong scene. Let's try it again. Okay, I guess we have to fully stop it here and then rerun. Go. So we notice we come in, we have all these splatters. That's awesome. But there's obviously something wrong with what we're seeing. Well, to fix that, this is where the new flipping comes in for sprites. And all we have to do is go target or toggle one feature. And if we click on the actual sprite for our ship player, we can go inside the inspector on the right, go down into the visibility section. We'll see clip children. And we're going to set that to clip plus draw. And now when we run it, there we go. Look at that. We now have these splatters happening on our ship, and you could use this, of course, for splatters on the ground, splatters on maybe the enemy. You can get a little creative, maybe if a character is close enough to an explosion, maybe they get this soot kind of sprite, just like splattered across them as a gradient. And of course, you'll notice that my colors are at times kind of similar. Of course, you can go ahead and you can use RNG, called randomize the seed there a bit. Not click that, but there you go. We have some. That is how we do a splatter effect that we can apply to our player if we wanted to, the ground, our enemy that we're shooting at, whatever you wanted to do with it. And of course, doing this, we can now call it something paint instead of blood, if that's the kind of game that you got. And at that point, you're basically helping lower your rating closer to an E, which of course will broaden your range or broaden the audience of potential buyers if this is going to be a commercial project. But I'm going to stop rambling there, and that's it. Take care. See you guys in the next one, and hopefully this is something that you found interesting and maybe even useful.